You are listening to UpTalk with Sean Conahan. The gloves are off, and it's time to have a chat.
Hello, people. What's up? Welcome to Season 4 of UpTalk Podcast. It's going to be an awesome season. Thank you for joining me. Right off the bat, here's a trigger warning. If you have issues with triggers, make sure you do whatever you need to do to put yourself in a good mindset, frame of mind, however you want to say it, to get the most out of the podcast, to be able to listen. Okay? Because you are going to hear conversations that are traumatic in nature, as always. So the possibility of being triggered is there. Okay? So do whatever it is you need to do. Alright. Few things I got to tell you about before we get to our first guest. First of all, as I said, Season 4, so I'll get some people to thank. So, thank you, as always, to Bruce Buffer from the UFC for doing the UpTalk intro. It's awesome. I love it. Doesn't get old for me. Thank you to Kevin Davison for, again, lending his song, When Those Sirens Are Gone, for the podcast. It's the perfect song for the podcast, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for that, brother. Thank you to the Mental Health News Radio Network. As you know, the podcast streams exclusively on that network. You can look them up at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. I know it's long, but that's what it is. Okay? And some cool things are happening with that network. It's blowing up. We just got some data the other week, last week, and we have an international audience of 6.7 million listeners. Million. Okay? You're definitely not alone. It's a huge community of like-minded individuals who are looking to get educated about mental health and mental wellness. So, linked to that, if you would like to become a sponsor of UpTalk Podcast and potentially connect with all of those like-minded people, throw me an email at uptalkpodcast@gmail.com and we'll get that ball rolling. I would love to have you. It would be great. Okay? Alright. I mentioned the Mental Health News Radio Network. And you can also find UpTalk Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if that's not the case, let me know, and I will fix that right away. Also check out the UpTalk Podcast Facebook page, Instagram page, Twitter feed, and YouTube channel. The YouTube channel, by the way, will be updated. Will be all up to date by the end of the week. Check out those pages, please. Just search UpTalk Podcast for all of them. If you're able to, please take a second to leave a rating and some feedback or some comments. It makes a huge difference for the podcast, and I can't do it without you. Okay, so please take a second, and that would be awesome. The theme this season, I'm going to go with a season-long theme, and the theme is #OwnYourGrowth. And here's what that means, and I'll make it quick. I was going to do a great big rant on this, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just do a short rant. I don't believe, for the most part, that we do everything that we could do to promote our growth, to promote post-traumatic growth. I think that we tend to shy away from things that are hard, and growth is hard. I think that we put it on our psychiatrists or our psychologists or our organizations, government, family, friends. We think it's their responsibility to make us better. And if they don't, then we're just going to continue to wallow in our PTSD or whatever other mental health diagnosis you may have. Okay? And that's not right. We are responsible. I am responsible for my growth. You are responsible for your growth. It's time to stop with the excuses. It's time to stop overthinking and simply do the things that we know help us. Okay, I'm going to be doing that as well. I'm going to talk more about that later. And I'll be updating you throughout the season. So I'm with you. But that's what it's about. So I want to know what you do. So please send me a tweet, post on your Instagram, post on my Facebook page, post somewhere, or write me an email. Just send me a message somehow telling me what you do. Use the hashtag #OwnYourGrowth, and I want to hear what you do purposefully to promote your own well-being, to take responsibility. Okay, very important. That's what that's all about. We're going to be using it all season. Obviously, today is, if you're listening to the podcast, the day it comes out, which means that you're awesome. Today's January 30th, and it's Bell Let's Talk Day. Okay, if you don't know what Bell Let's Talk Day is, I'm not going to get this wrong, so just go to letstalk.bell.ca. All the information is there. It's a great initiative from Bell Canada. They do it every year, raise millions of dollars for mental health initiatives, which is great. But also remember that mental health awareness should take place 365 days a year, not just one day a year. But this initiative is great, and I thank Bell Canada for it. Thank you for the initiative. My guest this episode is a corrections officer from Kenora, Ontario. He was in the news last year. On September 14th, he was taken hostage by the inmates that he worked with every day. I can't even imagine what that must have been like, even after the chat. I don't even have any words. This conversation is really heavy, really emotional, really informative, courageous, I would say. So, really make sure that you're in a good headspace, good frame of mind to listen to this chat. It's awesome to have a corrections officer on. I think it's the first corrections officer that I've ever had on. They're tough. They're tough to get on. They're tough to get to open up and chat. But I think they're getting better. I think we'll find that more of them will come on, which is really important. They're a really important branch of first response, and they work in an environment that is unlike any other. All right, so that's enough from me. Buckle up. Let's meet John Tsentouros.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to the podcast, John. It is a real pleasure to have you here today.
Yes, thanks, John. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be great. As I was telling you before, we have yet to have a correctional officer come on the podcast, and it's really important. I've had a little bit of exposure to correctional officers recently, which we can talk about when we get into it, but I'm so excited to have you on and really looking forward to hearing your story. I'm just sort of getting to know you. I'm meeting you now. Many of our listeners may be in the same boat. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you grew up, and what led you, sort of what path you took to the first responder world.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm originally from Kenora, Ontario, born and raised. I've lived here most of my life, moved away a couple times after high school to Winnipeg, lived in Brandon for a bit. Initially out of school was looking to become a firefighter. That was my sort of dream career path at high school. Wanted to, be the typical firefighter and, wear the coveralls and drive the truck and, respond to fires, that kind of thing, and was really looking for that kind of line of work. So I attended the fire college in Vermilion through Lakeland College, graduated their fire program in 2007, I believe, and shortly thereafter was reunited with my high school sweetheart, and
Nice.
Life kind of steered me in a different direction. I was all ready to move out west to the big cities and hopefully get on a fire crew in Calgary or Edmonton or BC, that kind of thing. But life had other directions for me. We moved back to Brandon to pursue some more post-secondary education, and once we decided that we were going to get married, I was looking to kind of move back home and be closer to our immediate family, which was in Kenora. And I always thought that I could pursue my firefighter dream in Kenora. And what better story would it sound like to move back to my hometown, marry my high school sweetheart, and get onto the City of Kenora Fire Department. So
it's a country song. It
is. Yeah. It kind of, that's what it seemed like it was going to be. From what I remember, I believe, was looking to get on with the City of Kenora. It was, the majority of the guys and gals in that crew, I believe, were, volunteer to start. And, so right away I signed up to be a volunteer firefighter. I believe I did it for about 2 years, or so. And, once I realized that, it would be a little bit of a longer, career journey to be on, become a full-time firefighter, with the City of Kenora, then, our priorities kind of changed. And, our first daughter was born in 2010. And at that point, my priority became, being a family man and buying a house and, living that kind of dream. And I realized that if I wanted to pursue my firefighter dream, I don't think the City of Kenora was the most realistic option. It would be a matter of moving and kind of pursuing my career elsewhere. And at that point, I didn't want to move my family anymore. We were happy living in Kenora, still very happy living in Kenora. And, at that point I said, I think this might be as far as my firefighter dream goes. So, I was happy with how it ended. And, I always tell people that, that ship sailed at that point and I was okay with it. I was, volunteer for about two years or so with the city and I enjoyed my experience with it. But at that point I was dedicated to just be a family man and providing for my girls I guess, how did I get into the line of corrections or
that? From there you made a choice to go to correctional work.
Yeah. And it wasn't a job that I was actively seeking out. I had, a little bit of experience, in my previous employment life as, in the hospitality industry and in a little bit of sales. So I've always been like a people person. I've always been,
right.
Willing to help people, talk to people, that kind of thing. And it was actually a chance, discussion through, a mutual friend of ours that, I discovered that there was a line of work in corrections in the city, at our local jail. And, it wasn't a line of work that I thought I would see myself in, but from what I understand and from my short time in corrections, a lot of time it's a job that people don't actively really seek out. They just kind of come across it and it turns out they're good at it.
Right.
And, it was just a random conversation with my, an old, daycare provider of us. Her husband had worked, with corrections at the Kenora jail. And I always knew what he did, but I never really understood, what does a correctional officer do?
Right.
And, one day when I was picking up my daughter from daycare, he just kind of gave me a letter and he said, you're looking to work at the jail? And I just kind of looked at him and I thought, me? Like, why would I work in a jail? Like, who would want to work in a jail? That doesn't sound like a career porter.
Yeah.
And, he said, well, we're looking for good people. And he kind of gave me a letter and I looked at the, I think the starting wage at the time was significantly more than what I was bringing home at that time. So when I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's a starting wage. And I said, well, for that type of money, maybe it's something I should consider. So,
right.
Brought the information home, discussed with my wife, and I kind of thought, this might be something that we could look into and it could provide us with a little more opportunities and a little more growth for our own family, just kind of, from a financial standpoint. So that's how the conversation started.
Yeah. Did you have any reservations when you're having this conversation with your wife about the kind of environment that you would be working in?
At first we did, cause I was totally oblivious to what the world of correction was like.
Right.
I was, the only thing that I knew about correctional officers and working in a jail was what I've seen through movies and pop culture and Hollywood and that kind of thing. So I knew there was, obviously some mistruths to it. And I had known a couple people in town that have worked at the Kenora jail, but I never really brought it up and they never really discussed about it. And, so I knew that if I wanted to find out on my own, kind of, off the record, what really goes on at the jail here in Kenora, then I would.
Right.
So I just started the application process and kind of said to my wife, if it doesn't work out and if I don't make it through the selection process, then it wasn't meant to be. So,
right.
And the selection process itself was a very long and drawn out process. I think from beginning to end, I think it was about maybe 10 months. And a lot of it was done out of town. So my previous employment history was you apply in person at a job, you talk to someone face to face, and you give them a resume, you do an interview, and then you find out in a week if you made it. But what I wasn't aware of was that through the Ministry of Corrections here in Ontario, at least, everything was done, in the bigger city centers. So a lot of what we do here in Kenora, at the Kenora jail, is dictated by South, like Toronto, Ottawa, and that kind of thing. So I couldn't even go into the jail to speak to somebody in person. It was all done online. And I was pretty much left in the dark as per where I was along the selection process. I would get an email every 2 months saying, okay, now you have to go here to do a test. And then I'd go to the test at another town, and then I wouldn't hear anything for 2 months. So I always thought that, well, that's as far as I go. And it was a very different hiring process, something I've never really been.
So how long did it take? Like, how long was the process in total?
I'd say about 9 to 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine applying for a job that well, you'll find out in a month if you're on the next step. And there was all these steps. It was a very drawn out process, and
Right.
I always chalked it up to, well, if you can make it throughout this long process, then I guess you're cut out to be a correctional officer. And I was told, through some friends that, well, this is how they weed people out. This is how they select people.
Right.
This is how they, so I just thought, okay, well, let's go on to the next stage. If I make it, great. If I don't, well, it wasn't meant to be. So, and as luck would have it, I guess once it was all said and done, I finally got an email, and this was after physiological tests, psychological tests, interviews, just a whole whack of different testing that I wasn't really privy to. Just in my previous short career as a firefighter,
Right.
I knew there was a physical aspect to the job, but there was a lot of psychological and mental. I want to say tests, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. But it was a lot of mental questions. A lot of questions where I'd look at the question on paper and kind of go, I don't understand what this question means. Like, how does this relate to working in a jail? So,
Right. There are obviously benchmarks that they're looking for that you may not be aware of while you're doing it.
Very, very foreign to me. So I just thought, well, I'll just be honest and answer as honest as I can. And as luck would have it, I think finally very early in 2014, I got an email, after a series of emails over the course of 9-10 months saying, you've been selected to attend the Correctional Officer Training Academy. And I think at the time, they hadn't hired correctional officers in the province of Ontario for a long time. There was something going on with labor discussions, and there was a hiring freeze and that kind of thing. So when it was all said and done, I was part of the first hiring new round of correctional officers they hired in the province of Ontario, I think in about 6 years. So it was a big deal that they were hiring, and it was a big deal that, they were recruiting. And I remember people making a big deal about that, like, oh, this is good. This is a good thing for corrections, and we're going to get some new recruits and that kind of thing. So I was told to be in Thunder Bay. I think in about 2 weeks, I was supposed to be in Thunder Bay and to attend a training academy that was, I believe, about 3 months long. And then if I got through that, finally, then I would be, hired on as a correctional officer. At that point, I was like, okay, now I've, got through the hard part. Now I just have to get through this course, this academy, and then I'm done. Then I'm good to go. So
Right. So obviously you got through the academy, and
Yep.
that went okay. And then you get this job in your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Kenora District Jail. So tell me
Correct.
a little bit about the jail itself, as far as, like how many inmates are there?
Mm-hmm. I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe the jail here in Kenora is, I want to say, like maybe 70 to 80 years old. It's a significantly older building.
Right.
It is, I believe it is housed for maybe 120 inmates.
Right.
In the Kenora jail here, we have both male inmates and female inmates. Significantly more male inmates than female inmates. The majority of our population is First Nations or Indigenous people. I think last time I saw a stat, it was upwards of about 85 to 90%.
Whoa,
So,
okay.
so where Kenora is located, we're surrounded by a multitude of First Nation communities.
Okay.
Just where we're located. So,
right. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's stats and news and reports as to why our population is that percentage, but that was never a concern for me. I was always along the lines of, I'm getting into this line of work because I want to help people, and regardless,
people are people.
Yeah, people are people, and I always try to conduct myself in a way of, I always want to treat people the way I'd like to be treated, regardless of why you're here or what your legal background is or your personal life, that kind of thing.
Right.
And they stressed that in the training academy. They were very big on, these are people that you're dealing with. These are people that are going through a difficult time in their life. And, the last thing they need from you as a frontline worker is to be disrespected or to be, treated poorly and that kind of thing. So my father as growing up, always instilled to me the morals that, treat people the way you want to be treated. And in the line of corrections, that kind of mindset and that kind of, how you would conduct yourself, that's paramount. I mean, you're dealing with people that are, in a bad spot and at the lowest points, could be one of the lowest points in their lives. And, you're kind of their first contact with a lot of things. So, if you're not a very nice person, or if you have, if you bring kind of stuff to work that, doesn't work, it's just going to make your day even more difficult than it already is. Right. So.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So when did you start work at the Kenora jail?
I started, I believe, in May of 2014. Right. So I've been there a little over 4.5 years, and yeah, I believe after little over 2 years, I received a full-time spot. So, okay. So I think I did a little over 2 years of casual work or on-call work. But in my own situation at the Kenora jail, because we were the first new recruits that had been hired on in well over five years, there was no shortage of hours. I believe when we walked in the building, they said, if you guys want to work 80, 90 hours a week, you can do that. There was a multitude of hours available. So I only worked what I felt I could handle and what made sense for my life. Right. And the first 6 or 7 months was just learning the institution and just learning how to work at that jail and how to apply what I've been trained at the academy into my own jail here. So.
Were there other new recruits at that jail that started at the same time as you?
Yeah, so there was 3 other recruits that got hired on when I got hired on. Okay. So when our class in Thunder Bay, we were an academy that had postings for Fort Francis, Kenora, and 2 of the centers in Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay had 2 jails. So okay. Everyone that was part of that training academy, we were specifically hired for the north part, Northern Ontario.
So you could go to any one of those. You could work a shift in any one of those jails. Or would you just be in Kenora?
I believe at the time we were given an option as to where we wanted to work, and okay. But
so you didn't float between.
No, we were hired specifically for the Kenora jail. I mean, I think initially you could have given an option like, I'd like to work at the Kenora jail first, but if for whatever reason it doesn't work, then I'll go work in the Fort Francis jail. They were very good about placing us where we wanted to work. Okay, cool. Because that made sense. I mean, there was such a hiring shortage at the time that, if someone said, well, I'd like to work in Thunder Bay, they would do whatever they could to make sure we were trained, ready to go, and then posted at where we wanted to. So.
Right. So how did you find that career up to, before September 14th of this year? How did you find it? Was it like what you thought it would be? What are some of the things that you found that surprised you, good or bad?
It was unlike any line of work I've ever done before. And I know that's a very poor way of describing things, but there was definitely some misconceptions that were apparent right away. There was very little of what I expected actually came true. So for example, it wasn't a dark, dreary, miserable, scary place, right. Cause
that's what I vision.
Yeah. And from what I understand, it was, at the time, I mean, when we did a tour during our training academy, we did go to a place where it was exactly that. It was dark, it was dreary, it was scary, it was dim lit. And I remember walking around that institution thinking, if this is what the Kenora jail is going to look like, then I can't work here. Like, there's no way. I thought we were walking around a movie set. I thought, people don't work in this place. You don't keep here. This is not real. And that institution at the time was, way overdue for a renovation, way overdue for an overhaul. It was an older building. So, and I knew that, well, I've never been in the Kenora jail before, but I just thought if the Kenora jail is anything like this institution that we're touring, then I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is a right, safe decision or a healthy decision for that matter. So I was pleasantly surprised in the Kenora jail, at least, that it was the opposite of that. It was a well-maintained, building that had, safety features, that kind of thing. And even just the day-to-day options, there was a lot of stuff that goes on in the jail that I wasn't aware of. The whole legal aspect of it, courts and, the legal system and lawyers and visits, that kind of thing. Like I didn't realize so much goes on in that building that is just, I don't want to say hidden from the public, but you'll never know what really goes on in the jail unless you go in there. And the corrections as an industry, they for very, obvious reasons, they keep things hidden, for safety reasons and for security and for, public safety. So, once I got in there, I thought, wow, this is unlike anything that I was, expecting. And the training academy really brought most of those to light. Like they were very good at, educating us about, it's not just what goes on in a jail like you see in the movies. There's actually this part and this part and this part. There's activities, there's social programs, there's rehabilitative programs. There's so much that goes on in the building that unless you're part of that industry and that culture, you're just not aware of. So.
Wow. Yeah, I bet. So how would you say you fared before September 14th? How were you doing personally with the job, coping with it?
Mm-hmm. I did a pretty good job of it, up until then. I mean, they were very good at the academy of letting us know that, this is a difficult line of work and it is not, for the faint at heart, and it takes a special person to be a correctional officer. It's a job that, can be very difficult on personal lives. Like, it's a job that can be very difficult on you, mentally. It's a high stress job. With any line of first responders, there's stuff that, that can happen in the blink of an eye that can change things from something totally normal to a life and death situation. And, they were very big on letting us know that, you need to have, you need to live a healthy lifestyle, and you need to have, family or support system outside of the corrections, world that can support you. And I've been blessed most of my life to have pretty much everything that they said will take care of you if things go bad. I mean, I'm very fitness oriented, and I have a great family. I've got, loving siblings and parents, that kind of thing. So they were very big on saying, and teaching us that, this job, this line of work, it can suck the life out of you if you let it. And I remember, in my first year, of working at the jail, that I saw people that, had put many years in this line of work, and you could tell that, they're tired and they're jaded and they're, disenchanted and disenfranchised, and you can see that this job is wearing on them. And, people tend to cope, and people tend to, treat themselves in different ways. And I'm not here to tell people, what's the right way and wrong way. But, I in my short time, I could see that, some people just didn't, in my opinion, take very good care of themselves outside of work. And it was difficult to see that, this is what they showed us in the academy. And then when you're out there and you're working day to day and you see that, actually happen, you're kind of like, oh, that's what they were talking about. And that's what they mean. And I can see it now. So yeah, it's a difficult line of work, and it's not for everybody. And, it's a job that needs to be done, and it's a dangerous line of work. And it's unfortunate that a lot of what happens, behind the scenes, so to speak, in our jails, is largely, unknown from the general public.
Right. Because we were talking about that beforehand. So I found it extremely difficult to find correctional officers who want to talk about their job or about how they're doing with it. So,
Yeah.
And you gave some good explanations for that. If you could just go through that again, that would be wicked.
Yep. Yeah. So like I said, it's, you're in a line of work where you're constantly disrespected, you're manipulated, you're exposed to, dangerous situations. You're always at risk to be assaulted. You're always at risk to be, harmed. It's very, very tough work, and it's work that needs to be done. And unless you work in a jail, it's very difficult to explain to somebody outside of the industry what it's like. And correctional officers as a whole, we rely on each other for support and for helping each other. And, we correctional officers as an industry, we end up spending more time with our coworkers than we do with our own families. And right. I remember that was a really heavy point to kind of accept in the academy. They said, there's a reason why we call this line of work, a family, because you spend more time with your coworkers than you do your family. And I remember thinking, wow, that's a very, very heavy,
it's a commitment.
That's heavy to kind of comprehend. And many times in my short time at the jail, I always thought, am I going to be working in this line of work for 10, 15, 20 years? Am I going to be, retiring possibly after 35 years in corrections? I don't know. I always thought that, if I can go to work and I can be safe and I can come home and still be the same person I am, after work, then it's been a good day. And, right. And I always had a deal with my wife going into this line of work. I always said, if at any point in time during my career in corrections, if this job changes me somehow, and I don't know what the criteria for change would be at the time, but I said, if I come back and I end up being a different person, or there's just something different about me, and I need your help to kind of reel me in and let me know that it's happening, because at that point, doesn't matter how much money you can pay me, it doesn't matter how much benefits and time off and vacation, all that kind of stuff, all the perks of this job, then we need to reconsider why I'm in this job. So that was always something that we agreed on, because they said, this type of work, it can ruin relationships, it can cause strain on your families, it can cause personal chaos if you let it. So I was always kept that thought in my mind. If I let this job do that, it'll do that to me. So.
Well, and there's no way at all that it can't change you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You cannot be, not affected by that, and it has to change you in some ways.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been things at the jail that in my line of work, I should say, that I never thought I would witness. I never thought I would be a part of. Right. And there's very, there's very troubling things that happen in a jail. And that's obviously, it's hard to talk about unless you're there, and it's hard to talk about unless you work there. So and me as a father and as a husband, I tend to, keep my family at a distance when this line of work. I don't come home and talk about, hey, guess what happened at work today? If something, very troubling happened at work, I don't want to, kind of put that stress and put that sort of, mindset into my family, because I don't want them to know some of the things that I've seen, or I don't want them to know some of the things I've experienced, or, so that's difficult to balance at times. It'd be the same as, a firefighter or a police officer, or, somebody in that line of work responding to a scene of an accident, or something of a crime scene, that kind of thing. I mean, we have crime scenes and we have accidents and we have horrific events that happen in our jails every day. And that can be very difficult to handle. And that can be very difficult to work through, because in the jail, we are the firefighters, and we are the police officers, and we are the paramedics, and we wear so many hats in that line of work. So there's so many troubling events that happen in the jail that we have to kind of play those roles all the time.
And like you were saying, it is hard. It's almost impossible for the general public, because even with me, I'm trying to think of all the different branches of first responders and where we typically see them working. And I don't think there's another branch that, when you think about where they work, you get as scared or as you get this feeling of, wow, that is a scary place to be. Like, yeah, because I mean, you're right. It's just it's a different animal.
Yeah, it's a one phrase that I always go back on, even now as you know, after in my own recovery, I tell people, like, it's a whole different world in there, and unless you go through those doors and experience it, you know, I could tell you stories, and I've only been in there 4.5 years. I've just started, and you know, I could tell you things that you would never believe, and I could tell you things that you would think I'm making up, and I go, no, this happens. This happened. I saw this, and yeah, it's a whole different world in there, Sean. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. I mean, I can't imagine it. So you've only doing it for 4.5 years, but I mean, there are people in there, like, you're veteran correctional officers at your jail. How long have they been doing this?
Oh boy, 20 years, 25 years. Wow. I've had some officers, even in my short time there, who have since retired, that were, you know, creeping up on 30 years. And, you know, they've been in that line of work since they started. A lot of them started, working in the youth offenders, line of work. Yeah. So they've seen, you know, things since they've been 18, 19 years old. And, you know, they've chosen to stay in this dangerous line of work. And, you know, I always look to them for, you know, in my, even now, even as I'm going through my recovery phase, I reach out to them for support and guidance and advice, and, you know, try and, you know, look to them to say, you know, how can you be in this line of work for 20 years, for 25 years, for 30 years? What's keeping you here? Why are you still here after all this, you know, so.
Well, and another important point to make, because you mentioned about, you know, the fact that it's just hard to get people to understand what you do. There is a certain element of correctional officers not being able to talk about what they do, because there is a sort of a safety element, highly regulated by the government.
Correct.
And there's just some things you just can't talk about.
Correct. Yeah. So, yeah. And that just falls back on safety and security. You know, we're not at liberty to discuss, you know, certain operational procedures in the jail. Right. You know, for various obvious reasons. And, you know, it's just kind of an unwritten rule that, you know, if you don't want to, what am I trying to say? Like just don't talk about it, you know, because in the end, your job is to keep your coworkers safe, to keep, you know, the population safe. And if information gets out as to how,
you can't compromise that.
Exactly. Yeah. We can't compromise any line of safety and security in our institution, because, you know, we're frontline staff, and, you know,
have to maintain some form of tactical advantage.
Exactly. Yeah. Information is power. And in our line of work, it's one of the things that we maintain control of. You know, control, custody, and care is our you know, bread and butter at work. And if we get information out there that the wrong people, or the, you know, that's not supposed to be out there, then our line of work is compromised. And that ultimately leads to the, you know, to making our jobs even more dangerous than it already is. So.
Right. Yeah, for sure. All right, brother. So that brings us to September 14th. So before we talk about it, because, I mean, this is sort of how I initially saw you, was a news article detailing September 14th. And for those of you that don't know, John was taken hostage inside of his jail on September 14th. So we're going to talk about that a bit. But beforehand, I just want to let everybody know, obviously there's an active investigation going on with this. So there may be things you can't talk about. And you and I talked before we started that I want you to talk about everything that you can. So, and I don't want you to hold back. I just want you to talk about whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you're able to talk about. So, how I want to start this is, okay, it's September 14th. You're at home getting ready for your shift. Walk me through your morning. Walk me through your day.
Yeah, okay. It basically was like any other day. I went to work, not expecting anything different than the previous day.
Right.
Yeah, it was about as.
Has there been any unrest up to this point? Like undue unrest?
There was actually, there was a little bit of unrest. I mean, I don't want to say leading up to it, but there's always some nature at the jails.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And that day itself, I mean, it was a typical day at work. Nothing different than the previous days beforehand. I went to work and did things the same way I did thousands of times before. I didn't, looking back, I kind of think I didn't do anything different. I didn't, there's a nature in our line of work, I guess with any line of work in first responders where, complacency can be, an issue. And with the academy, they always stress that, don't be complacent, don't be complacent, don't be complacent. Our line of work is a lot of the same stuff every day. So complacency has the tendency of creeping in and kind of, if we do the same thing every day, how's it going to change? But that's how corrections works as a whole. A lot of it is the same repetitive stuff because we just become experts at it. So looking back on that day, the first thing I thought of was like, was I being complacent? Was I being this? Was I being this? And, and I've run through that day in my head millions of times as to, could I have done this differently? Could I have done this differently? And at the end of the day, I'm confident that I didn't do anything out of the ordinary that led to what happening. Right. It was just a regular day and I was just doing things the way I always done. And it was funny because in the particular area of the building where this incident took place, I was actually there the day before, working with, the same inmates the previous day. And it's funny because that day I didn't see anything different as, that would give me some kind of inclination as to something's different here or something's going on or I can feel something like that kind of correctional officer's intuition where I kind of go, something doesn't feel right. And I've actually been in previous scenarios where I've had that and it's been much more dangerous and, you can kind of tell that something's not safe here. And we correctional officers do a very good job of, looking out for each other, protecting each other, keeping each other safe.
Right. So, this is a big thing. I want you to take your time because I can't imagine this. So your shift starts. How long into your shift before things start going wrong?
I'd say about almost halfway through my shift. I was scheduled for an 8-hour shift as opposed to a 12-hour day. And it was about halfway through, just after lunchtime, when it happened. And so it was just
take your time. And what happened? Walk me through it, whatever you can.
Trying to think here. It was just after lunch, and I was relieving some of my coworkers for their lunch breaks. And we had actually had a smaller incident earlier on in the day that was contained, that was taken care of, that was, we had already dealt with it. So at the time I thought, well, that's probably the high point of my day. That was probably the only incident we're gonna have to deal with.
Right.
So after lunch, I want to say around maybe 12:30 or so, I was relieving a coworker of mine for his lunch duty, and then upon his return from his lunch break, he had asked me if I could help him, rotate a group of individuals who were on what we call misconduct or like discipline for an unrelated topic or an unrelated incident. And what happened was they were what we call on lockdown. So they were closed, contained in their cell. So they were on what we called rotating times out or rotating breaks. So we would release them from their cells in order to have things like, a shower, access to the phone, general, outside time, because, there's only we can't really keep them, in our jail at least, they still have rights no matter how much trouble they're in, no matter how much, discipline they're facing. They still have rights. They still have access to so-and-so, basic needs, hygiene and food and communication, that kind of stuff. So I was asked if I could help rotate some cells. So I said, sure, yeah, that's totally fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. And it was in an area where I was actually that post officer the previous day. So it was inmates that I've worked with before, inmates that knew who I was, and you know, nobody I didn't feel uncomfortable with. I had a good rapport with everybody. You know, it's kind of funny because, you know, rapport is huge in the line of corrections. You know, if you have a good rapport with your coworkers, with your inmates, that kind of thing, then people, you know, you tend to make the job easier, right? If I was to be somebody who was hard to get along with, who, you know, was difficult, who, you know, just was there, you know, to make things difficult, then rapport, and mutual respect is huge in our line of work. So I always like to think that I had that with everybody. You know, everybody got along with me fine. I got along with everybody great. And I was always a problem solver. So if something were to come up, I'd always try to go out of my way to make sure, like, you know, how can I fix this, and how can I help this, and how can I, you know, what can I do to make your day better? Because, you know, look where we are. We're not in a very fun place. So how can I make the day easier? So in that particular day, when I was rotating cells, you know, I went in there, everyone said, hi, how's it going? Good. How are you? You know, it was just like any other day. It was just like any other day. And, from what I recall, I believe, I was in an area, with about, 7 or 8, I believe, who were just, you know, what we call free roaming. So they were out, you know, running, I don't want to say running free, but they were in a contained area, but they were in it
freely move around.
Correct.
Within inside their area. Yeah. Okay.
Within inside the area. Yeah. So everything was contained. And I you know, in our facility, one of the things that was always, you know, an area of concern as opposed to, you know, newer facilities is that when it came time to locking an individual cell, we as frontline staff, we physically have to go into that area and lock it ourselves, like with a key in our hand. Newer institutions, you know, they have systems in place where that can all be done from a secure location, i.e.
Right.
Automated, right? But because the Kenora jail at the time, and from what I understand, you know, at least now, it's still done that way. So that was always an area of concern, for frontline staff. I mean, we want to make sure that our jobs are as safe as possible, and anything that puts us in immediate danger.
Right.
It was always something that, you know, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. So again, you know, going back on how it went down, it was something that I had done thousands of times, no different, and something that's, you know, there's been situations where I've gone into that sort of scenario and I backed out because I didn't feel safe. I felt totally safe. I felt totally secure. I felt like everything was normal. So I went in there and you know, was having discussions with the inmates inside, making jokes, asking how lunch was, you know, just normal everyday stuff.
Being human.
And, you know, and a lot of times they'll, you know, they might, delay, you know, or say, well, can I go to the bathroom first? Can I do this? And I say, yeah, sure, that's fine. Whereas other officers might say, no, like, you know, they might be a little more firm, and they might say, no, like, it's time to close up. You got to go in. I was always like, if you want to take 15 more seconds to grab a drink of water, that's fine. If you want to go to the bathroom, that's fine. If you need another minute to finish that phone call, that's fine. Like, I was always comfortable doing that.
Right.
And that's basically what happened. It was the same thing, you know. And I remember turning to my officer at the time, who was on the outside of the range area, and I asked him, I said, you know, who's coming out next, or how are we rotating this? Like, you know, what was the plan? And I maybe turned my head for 10 seconds just to kind of, like, you know, make eye contact with my coworker to say, you know, what's the plan here? And yeah, I believe they just attacked me. They just swarmed me and just started, just a beat down.
You're on the other side. You're on the other side of a locked area?
Correct. Well,
Okay.
I was on the inside of a locked area.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
With them. Yeah, okay.
With them. Yeah. And it's hard to paint a picture of how it actually, I mean, I could tell you what it looks like, but I'd literally have to draw you on a piece of paper to kind of give you the dynamics of how it worked. But I was in a contained area.
All right.
Yeah. I was in a contained area, secure contained area and I could only gain access to it through basically, like 2 or 3 sets of doors that were opened, at a separate controlled area. Right. So it's not something that you can just come in, automatically. You have to, go through specific lines of security to get in there.
So the other officer that you had making eye contact with, they obviously can see you, but they can't access you.
Yeah. They can see everything. But they can't physically reach me unless I come out of there. So there was always that right. that risk of once you're in there, you got to make sure that you have an escape plan. You got to make sure that,
it's but again, moment. Yeah.
It's a very high risk moment, and it's something that's done dozens of times every day. And so once that's kind of, you do the same high risk movement or high risk scenario, or you put yourself in a high risk, area, but you come out of it safe and secure thousands of times, eventually you lose that element of danger because you just think, well, this is normal. This is what I do. This is just, So it was totally out of the blue. It was
right. So
very.
They swarm you. Mm-hmm. I get it. So they overtake you.
Yep.
And you have weapons on you?
Yeah. I mean, very. I wouldn't really. Yeah, like we have.
What do you carry with you?
In the facility itself.
Yeah. When you're doing
not more than
work.
Not more than a can of what we call it's basically a can of mace or a can of like pepper spray. And
you don't carry a firearm at work.
No, not in my line of work. No.
All right.
No.
And I don't know if that's normal or not in corrections. I know nothing about it. I just wanted to ask. Okay. So you don't have a firearm. You have this can of mace or like stuff. You don't have like a club. You don't have a billy club or anything like that. Nothing.
No. Like there's like tools and weapons that they would issue you if you were ever out in the public, but inside the institution, no. Like we have very little aside from our own kind of tactical self-defense training to protect ourselves from. So it's very, very basic. It's we don't carry tasers, we don't carry that kind of stuff. No.
Okay. I'm surprised by that. I mean, knowing that I'm very naive, I wouldn't know what is normal in that industry. But I would have thought you had more. Okay, so you have this can. That's all you have. Obviously, you didn't have an opportunity to get that. Or do you?
No. I mean, I didn't even see the first shot coming. It was a complete sucker punch, I guess, from what I've been told, and I didn't even have a chance to. It happened so fast, and it was so overwhelming. Like. I immediately just, all that ran through my head at the time was just what's going on, what's happening.
Survive.
Survive. It was total survival at that point.
Did you go unconscious?
No, I was awake.
Okay. So, all right. So they swarm you, they overtake you, they get control.
Yeah.
What do they do then? Like, are they talking to you through this? I mean, I guess they're yelling at you, maybe, but.
Yeah, they're,
It's okay.
Yeah, they got me. Yeah, they may have been talking, they may have been saying, I mean, I remember bits and pieces. I remember just,
of course,
a lot of chaos, a lot of noise, a lot of just, from what I understand, I remember certain parts of that, which I probably won't get into now.
Yep.
But yeah, I was just in total survival mode. I was just worried about defending myself and just kind of, trying to survive. Yeah, it was chaos. It was I just remember thinking, what's happening? Where is this coming from? How many, just a lot of questions about what's happening, why is this happening? I don't understand what's happening. And I mean, we have what we call a lot of code blue buttons. So when the alarm goes off, in the building, it's this big blaring alarm and officers are supposed to respond to a certain area. I didn't hear any of that. I know it was activated. I know officers were in there. I know that everybody rushed to my area.
Right.
But I didn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. They completely overwhelmed me. And I just remember thinking, why can't I hear the alarm? Why can't I hear this? A lot of stuff that I knew was happening at the time. I was just surprised that I couldn't hear anything. All I heard was it was almost like I could hear silence. It was very eerie. I just remember thinking, am I unconscious? Have I been knocked out? Am I incapacitated? What's going on?
So then, what ensues? Basically, a standoff ensues?
Yeah, it was. To make a long story short, they had it was, basically a standoff happened.
Okay.
That's how I'll kind of leave that. There was a standoff.
Okay.
And, it was very hard to, kind of more or less, be completely helpless.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was very difficult to process. I knew at the time that the best thing I could do for my own well-being was to stay calm. I remember thinking to myself, wow, you hear that line all the time, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. Right. And at that point I remember thinking, I need to stay calm. I can't lose my head here. I need to stay calm and trust that they're going to get me out of here. That my brothers and sisters and everybody else, they're coming to get me. They're going to save me. Even though there were times, while it was going on that, I knew I was in trouble, and I knew that things could go bad, worse than when they are now. Like the initial chaos of the first, I want to say 20 minutes, half an hour, I thought, okay, if I can get through the first, if 10 minutes is gone and I'm still here, that's a good thing. If it's been 20 minutes, that's a good thing. Like I knew that the longer I could just stay alive, that would be better.
Right.
I knew that the longer this went on was probably a good thing. I mean, I never really felt truly safe until I was out. I just knew that if I started freaking out, if I started losing my control, that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help me. That's not going to help, excuse me. That's not going to help, the process, people on the outside that have been dispatched. And, I just knew I had to survive. I just knew whatever I had to do to survive, just survive. Just stay alive was all I was really thinking of. And
how concerned were you that you weren't going to make it out of there? How much of those thoughts did you have, if you had them?
There were times, I remember,
Yeah.
that I knew that, there was times where I knew that, is this going to be the end? Is this how I'm going to go? Like this? I always, I don't want to say I was in denial about, what could happen, because I knew, once things had got to a point that I was kind of like, hey, there's only so many more scenarios that's going to happen here. And I tried not to think about that one as often as I could. But it crept in there a couple times. I remember thinking, my wife and I had just bought a house. Yeah. And I just thought, I remember thinking, I'll never get to, I had thoughts like, I guess I'll never get into that house, or I'll never build that garage that I wanted, or,
right.
A lot of like, I'll never do this again. I'll never do this again. So, there was some pretty dark, moments there where I just thought, well, I guess, this could be it. And I made peace with a lot of things pretty quick.
Right.
A lot of things didn't matter a lot anymore at that point. I don't want to say I went through a phase of regretting things, but I just thought, wow, there's so many missed opportunities of, I could have done this and I should have done this. And, it put things in perspective.
Yeah, quickly.
So fast.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, like a lot of stuff that, would bother me, or that would really, get under my skin. Certainly, like none of that mattered anymore. And right. It was very, very humbling to think that, this could be it. And, you could, I could sit there and, cry and be upset and I could break down and kind of, make the situation worse, or I can just hold on to, hope and just stay strong and, trust in the people that are out there helping me. I remember thinking like, there's people there that are helping you, John. They're going to get you out of here, John. They're, just hold on. Just stay alive. I just kept telling myself that, just stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay alive, and you do what you need to do to survive, and trust that they're going to get you out of here. And the longer you can do that, the better it's going to be for you. But yeah, there was some times where I just, you can't help it in that situation where you're totally helpless and you're at the mercy of somebody else. And,
right.
I was reminded constantly that, we're going to kill you. And
really?
Yeah.
That's the kind of things they were saying to you?
Yeah, that was said a lot. Yep. Yeah, we're gonna kill you. You're gonna die here. Hope you did this and hope you did that. Like a lot of stuff that they were just, they were just a lot of fear mongering.
A lot of bravado. A lot of
bravado, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I knew there was, I never, I was very silent a lot. I was just trying to not make things worse.
Right. You didn't engage. You weren't being engaged.
I was not engaging. Every time, I was, it was not a good situation, and I just wanted to survive. I was just doing my best to survive, and and trusting everyone out there, because I couldn't see a lot what was going on. I was hidden, and they were hiding me a lot. And so I was very limited as to what I could see. I could hear a lot of things, but I couldn't see a lot of things.
Right.
So I knew that there was, stuff going on the outside, but I didn't know exactly what was happening. And a lot of it was just like, they were asking me about what was happening, and I honestly didn't know what the process was. They were asking me,
Oh, okay. What they should expect?
Yeah, what are they doing out there, and where are they, and what's their plans, and what are they doing? And I would honestly say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, and they didn't believe me, and they thought I was lying to them, and so I would say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I was just trying to be as insignificant as possible at that point, because I knew as long as they had me, they had an advantage. But I knew that if I was, helping them in any way, that wouldn't help my case. So I just thought, I'm just going to sit here and be obedient and survive. And, so.
Okay. So how long were you there?
Oh God. It felt like an eternity. One thing I couldn't believe was that, the concept of time was totally irrelevant to me. It felt like I was there for 20 hours or so. I believe the whole thing from start to finish was maybe 4 hours, from the time it happened to the time I got out. That's a long time. But I just remember thinking, like, wow, I have no concept of time. It must be 8-9 hours. I remember thinking, it was that part I could not, even now I'm just kind of like, wow, I had no idea how the concept of time itself just went by so slow.
Right.
It was difficult to just sit there and think, what time is it? How much time has gone by?
Right.
Time itself just I couldn't understand time at that point. It was very surreal to me.
So, understanding that there may be some operational and tactical things you can't talk about, how did this resolve? Did it resolve in a peaceful manner, or did you have to be extracted forcibly?
No, thankfully it was resolved in a peaceful manner.
Okay.
I was fortunate and very blessed to see how the negotiation process worked. I had an individual who negotiated my life, so I was very blessed to see that play out, and I'm just thankful that it ended the way it did. It could have been a lot worse, and I keep telling myself that even to this day, like, it could have gone this way, it could have gone south, and it could have gone this way, and I was reminded a lot when it was going on that if it did go south, that I probably wasn't getting out of there.
Right.
Which was very difficult to hear constantly.
Right.
And again, with a lot of the misinformation that my, individuals who were responsible for this, they were very adamant saying, if this happens, you're dead. And if this happens, we're going to kill you. And if it goes this way, well, we'll still kill you. And,
Right. Yeah.
So I just knew that the longer this goes out, the better it's going to be. So I just was trying to just make this drag out as long as possible.
Right. Okay. So let's get you out of there. So you're out of there. You walk out under your own power?
Yes, I was able to, walk out of there. I was helped by an individual who,
right.
Who was there for the majority of, wasn't there for everything, but was there for the majority of, I want to say, the negotiation process. So I was very thankful, and was very thankful that she was there. And so when I was out, even though I could physically walk out of my on my own power, she walked out with me. So that was good to have somebody kind of walk me out.
What are your thoughts as you're walking out, as you're getting out of there? Remember? I
just remember thinking, is it over? Is it over? I just remember thinking, I knew there was a certain part through the building that, once I reached a certain point, then I knew I was safe. Like I knew, I was safe and I was out of harm's way. So as we were kind of walking there, I remember thinking, yeah, I might, I'm not really safe until I get through that door. Like, yeah, I'll go through this door and this door, but once I'm on the other side of this door, then I'm safe. Then I'm in the clear. So I just remember walking with her to that door thinking, is it over yet? Is it safe? Am I out? Just a lot of confusion, a lot of disorientation.
At what point did you know you were safe?
Once I was out of a certain hallway and through a door, and I saw paramedics with a stretcher, and from what I was told, all I saw was the paramedics. And they met me out in a certain hallway, and right away I recognized one of them. Growing up in a small town like Kenora, you see people that you've gone to elementary school, junior high school, that kind of thing. So right away I recognized a familiar face, and it was a gentleman that I had gone to school with. So right away when I saw him, I just immediately locked onto him and I said, "Hey, I know you. Like I know you. Like,
right.
We went to school together." And he recognized me, and right away he said, "Hey Johnny, good to see you." And kept things very casual and kind of like, "We're going to the hospital now, John." And I thought like, yeah, I understand that. Like it was a lot of basic questions being asked. "Do you know where we're going, John?" "Yes, I know where we're going." "Do you know why we're taking you there?" "Yes, I know why we're taking you there." So it was a lot of just very basic, kind of reorientating me to what was going on. Mm-hmm. I was told that in that hallway, there was, I want to say, maybe 20, 30 other correctional officers that were there. I didn't see them. I mean, granted, they were there because, since time has passed, I've, I've been told bits and pieces of, everyone else's point of view and where they were and what was going on and what, I'm still learning even to this day the roles that, everybody played and the whole process of what actually happened on the other side.
Right.
And to hear that, there was a whole hallway full of my coworkers and my fellow brothers and sisters who, were cheering and
yeah,
and just so happy that I was out is a very, very nice feeling.
Yeah.
But I didn't see them, which was hilarious because, it's almost like walking into a room filled with 100 people and you don't see or hear any of them. And that's what I experienced, which I don't know how that even is possible.
Right.
But they were there and, they were all cheering and they were all happy and everybody was just, just ecstatic. But I don't remember that. So I can't believe I don't remember that. I thought that would be a really cool memory to take with me. But, and I remember being, spoken to by my superintendent when I got out. And, and at the time when things are going on, I immediately thought of my wife, my kids, my family. I'm never going to see them again if I'm ever going to.
So how long does it take before you get home?
Well, they took me to the hospital right away, and thankfully I was physically not that bad. I like to think that I did a very good job of defending myself.
Right.
So from a physical standpoint, my face was a little busted up. I thought maybe they had broken an orbital bone or something, because I remember during the whole process, my one eye was getting pretty swollen up.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, oh, is this what a broken orbital bone feels like? Is this what
right.
Is this, I never experienced that. So I just remember thinking it really hurt and I couldn't open my eye, and I just thought, well, maybe that's broken. But from a physical standpoint, I was okay. There wasn't any major physical harm done to me. Bumps, bruises, cuts, abrasions, yes, but like no broken bones, no internal bleeding, no organ damage, that kind of thing. So, I kind of hang my hat on, the training that I received and, the defensive tactics that, we've been trained to, in case of that kind of thing. Like, I just remember thinking, well, I did a good job of defending myself. So that's one bonus.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 hours as they checked me over. I took a lot of shots to the head. So they were very concerned if there was anything there, if I was concussed, if I had,
Right. So you probably had an MRI and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So x-rays, MRIs, actually I'm still going through some MRI stuff, even now, but everything seemed okay. So I got home that same night. I want to say, maybe about 3-4 hours after I was at the hospital. So I was at home from the hospital, maybe 3 hours later.
Right. Okay, so I have 2 questions. First question would be, during this ordeal, did they, or when did they notify your wife that there was an issue, possibly, or do they do that? And then, So what is that like arriving home? How does that work?
Well, I was fortunate enough that arrangements were made through the management at the jail and through first responders here in Kenora, through OPP and paramedics and firefighters, all those amazing people, that they actually arranged to have my wife and my parents at the hospital there when I got there.
Okay.
So I saw them as soon as they wheeled me in.
So when did your wife become aware that there was an issue at the jail?
That's hard to recall. I want to say fairly soon.
There was like a process or a procedure.
Yeah, I from what I understand, it was fairly soon in the process. And again, like, the chaplain at our jail, who has been just phenomenal as far as support. He's been amazing, and he continues to be amazing, throughout this whole process. He actually went to my house at the time to be with my wife and to be with my parents as things were going on. Okay. He went there, he stayed with them, and I don't know how much of what they knew was going on at the time, but he went right away, and along with an OPP officer was there. So throughout the whole time of my ordeal, they were comforted. They were looked after.
How old are your kids?
I have 2 girls. My oldest is 8, and my youngest is going to be 3 here next week.
All right. So obviously, some of this must have overlapped when your 8-year-old came home from school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I got home, and it's funny because Kenora is such a smaller town. Anything that happens in Kenora, which is like considered major news, word gets around pretty fast.
Right.
And I believe that, people were aware of what was happening at the jail, and then right away they were aware of who it was before, any sort of statement or official word came out, like, through social media and just through, cell phones, all that kind of thing. Word spread pretty fast that this was happening at the jail and that I was involved. So when the dust had all settled and, once I got home, my family had, my father-in-law, my siblings, my mother-in-law, just everybody in my immediate family, they were quick to, look after my girls and make sure that, they were as far away from this as possible. But yeah, at the end of the day, my 8-year-old was coming home, and she knew that, she wasn't aware of what was going on, but I knew that, she's 8 and that she's going to see me all like this and she's going to wonder what happened. So, I had been kind of educating her about, my line of work as she was getting older, but I never really gave her the gritty details of what's going on. She knew that Dad worked in a dangerous place and that sometimes Dad was, working with bad people, and sometimes sometimes these bad people want to hurt Dad, but Dad's always going to be safe, and Dad's always, going to come home, and Dad's always going to, Dad's got people that look out for him. So I remember thinking, as we're kind of just trying to comprehend what's going on, now that everything's done, I remember looking at myself in the mirror going, wow, I look pretty banged up. How am I going to sell her? How am I going to tell this story?
Yeah.
So I think at the time, I think we concocted a story where I said I got hit in the head with a baseball. We were playing baseball and I missed the catch and I got hit in the face and that's what happened. And I remember she looked at me after I told her and she was like, "You got hit in the face with a baseball?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure did, but Daddy's okay." And and then she thought, "Okay, that's fine." And then just next topic. So we kind of dodged a bullet there, but I knew that over time, because this became such a big news story. Yeah. So we eventually told her, I want to say maybe 4 days after, what had happened, but we just gave her a very PG version of,
right.
Dad went to work. Dad had some trouble with some bad people. The bad people tried to hurt Dad. But Daddy's coworkers saved him and Daddy's safe now. And, Daddy's got some time off work. And she said, okay. So that was pretty much it. Like, that's all we told her. So we were very concerned that she would find out, the wrong way.
For sure.
Through, we wanted to tell her first and kind of give her the confidence to know that, Dad's
even
okay.
Something innocent, like a teacher asking her how she's doing, and then she's like, "What?
Exactly.
Give me that." Yeah.
And the follow-up from that, Sean, it was a lot to handle. Like, from a news standpoint, it was so overwhelming, the amount of attention that was just, put on, obviously on myself and my family, my coworkers. This was big news in Kenora here for a while.
Yeah.
And it was an unprecedented event. And, it became like, it was hard. That kind of attention. I've never been a person that likes, attention or seeks, kind of that
right.
That sort of, attention, I guess. But we could not stop it. It was overwhelming. It was crazy.
I mean, I'm one of them. I contacted you right away. And then, obviously, you're dealing with other stuff then. I just said to you, the door's always open here. If you use it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. I just wish the best for you and your family. But, understandably, you were getting it from all directions at that point.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, obviously from a source of like love and support.
Yeah.
But even that kind of love and support, it was very overwhelming. I mean, it was hard to kind of try and not deflect or shield my family from that, because they ended up taking the brunt of it, because immediately after it was all said and done, my family just surrounded me with, love and support and kind of kept me away from all that kind of stuff, because, even now, right back then they knew that, John's going to need help and John's going to need to be, we got to take care of John now. And they took the brunt of that attention, whether it was from the media, whether it was from family or friends, from, just people that were curious, and a lot of it was hard for them. And even now, almost 3 months later, we're still trying to, cope with that kind of, attention. I mean, it significantly, died down now, but, you still get the odd inquiry about, how's John doing and what happened and, like now what is he doing and, like what, is there anything we can do? Oh man, we heard that so many times. Is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can do? If you need anything, it was overwhelming. But at the same time, it was overwhelming in the wrong way too. I mean, you can only be told, if you need anything, let me know. If you need anything, let me know. And
right.
Is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to help? And I know even then, and looking back on it now, a lot of times people, when they ask that, or when they are offering that to me, they don't know how to help. And
it's like hi, how are you? It just sort of is.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was hard on them, and we never asked for this to happen, and it was just something that we're still trying to cope with, and and one of the things that I always try and stress to people was that with all the attention and the love and support that, that was directed at me and my family, I always tell people that, there was way more people involved in that than just me. There was my coworkers, the first responders, the counselors. Like there was such a tactical deployment of manpower on Kenora that day that it was crazy to see. Even now, nearly 3 months later, I'm still figuring out and finding out how many people were actually involved in the whole process. It's crazy to think there was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people that were involved and that were affected as well.
Right.
So I'm always quick to tell people, maybe you should go talk to this person and maybe they need help. And maybe, it's something I struggle with even now. I tell people I wasn't just me there, there was people that are still affected and are still dealing with it and are still, trying to, get back to normal, whatever my normal is now. It's I always tell people there's way more people than just me. I mean, obviously, yeah, I was a major focal point, but the first responders, the management, the nursing staff, the negotiators, the tactical members that were there, it affected everybody. It was just this huge ripple effect that's still affecting people here in Kenora.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll sort of ask a brief question. So it's been 2.5 months since. How are you doing physically and mentally? How are you?
How am I doing? Boy, that question just, I almost don't even know how to answer that anymore.
No, I know. It's a horrible way to ask it, but I don't know another way. So, yeah. But yeah.
Physically, I'm okay. Physically, I want to say that I'm better now.
Right.
From a mental standpoint, that's still yet to be determined. And I know that it's still, barely 3 months as it happened.
Are you still off work?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm off work for the foreseeable future. I don't know what work means anymore, which is a very hard thing to try to understand. My employer has been they've been fantastic as far as, letting me know that, you take as much time as you need, don't rush this, take all the time you need, that kind of thing. I don't know how much time that's going to be ultimately. I've been told many times that I'll know when I'm ready to go back to work, whatever work looks like now.
Right.
I'm seeking, or I have professional help. I'm talking to a psychologist. I talk to my coworkers. I talk to mutual friends, who are going through, their own, mental health recovery journeys. I know that there's probably something wrong. I don't know what ultimately what that is yet.
Yeah.
My psychologist at the time, I remember the first time I met with him, I said, "Do I have PTSD?" That was one of my first questions right off the hop. "Do I have PTSD? I think this would qualify as PTSD. What do you think?" And he was very hesitant to kind of diagnose me, I guess you could say.
Right. Because at that point you have post-traumatic stress, obviously.
Yeah.
But it takes obviously a clinical amount of time to make it PTSD, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess you could say, like, through my own research and through my own homework, that I definitely have symptoms of what would be considered PTSD.
Right. Of course. Yeah, for sure.
Nightmares for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard. I have a hard time sleeping. I've had very few good night sleeps since. I have what's called, I have like good and bad days, I guess is a good way to put it. The bad days suck. They really suck. But I'm trying really hard to, I'm trying really hard to talk to people. I remember I started talking to people the next day. And I knew that if I were to let this, totally, take over and, manifest it to something like depression or, just really bad stuff. I knew right away. I was like, well, I gotta talk to somebody right away. I remember thinking I need to talk to somebody as soon as I can. I need to get professional help. I knew there was resources and things in place that if I wanted to use it, I could. And I knew right away, like, well, I need to do that right away. I remember thinking the next day, and this is, people are, everything's still happening the next day.
Right.
I think my family had a plan to, let's go to your sister's house and let's go spend time on the lake and let's go do this and let's go do this. And I remember thinking, no, I want to go talk to somebody. I don't know who I want to talk to and I don't know what I want to talk about, but I want to talk about somebody. I want to start getting better. I want to start healing. I want to start, recovering, whatever that is now. I remember thinking, I don't know what the game plan is now. I don't know how to get better, but I want to start getting better. And
yeah,
people were good about, okay, like, this is what he wants. Let's go help him. Let's go do something. And even now, I don't know if what I'm doing is the right thing. I don't know if talking on a podcast is going to help myself or help somebody. But I just
help many people. I can tell you that. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. And I know that
I know what you mean. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. I've been told that, I may be rushing my recovery, which, is hard to hear because when you want to get better and you're doing what you think is a good plan, and to be told that, that might not be the good idea. And then I turn around and go, well, what is the best plan? Right. And nobody can tell me that. That's really difficult for me to try and comprehend.
Well, I mean, you're a type A personality, probably like the rest of us who get into this line of work. You like to control your environment, and you don't like to sit around.
Yeah,
you want to get to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, my good days are starting to outnumber my bad days.
Good.
But then when my bad days creep up, I'm reminded that I still have a lot of work to do.
Right.
So I get frustrated sometimes during the recovery process, but again, that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
I try to, be positive and look at, some of the good things that happened out of this. Obviously, I'm alive.
Yeah. That's the best thing. That's the most important thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And you have put a little bit of a jolt into this conversation for correctional workers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
whether you intended to or not, that's an outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, I've been contacted by so many people, just so many people in my line of work. Even now, correctional officers I don't even know, never even would never even think of getting in touch with them. And when I say I've been contacted by people, my phone was just blowing up for the first month right after.
Yeah.
Of so many messages of hope and support and courage and just well wishes and love from so many people in the corrections industry. I have a list of about maybe 40 institutions all across Ontario, Manitoba, BC, Alberta, like everywhere. I think the only province I didn't hear from was maybe PEI, and I don't even know if they have a jail. But it was crazy the amount of support that just came swarming me, and that was really hard to handle. That was really hard to just try and process. I mean, I've had stories from people that are as simple as, thinking about you, hope you get better, to people that have told me their whole life story about their healing journey and what they've been through and some of the things that, they've experienced. And it's it's overwhelming to know that I in corrections they call it in Ontario at least they call it the sea of blue, and one of my instructors at my training academy, a gentleman who's been in corrections for 30 years, I believe. He was very passionate about talking about the sea of blue, and the sea of blue is a beautiful thing, and by God, if you ever get to see the power and just the strength of the sea of blue it's a beautiful thing, and I've seen it probably at its finest, and it's I don't even know how to describe it. The amount of love and support and stuff just from the corrections family itself. They just, I'm still feeling.
You have felt the saying of "you are not alone."
Oh my God, yeah.
You now know what that feels like.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I know firsthand when it means like you're not alone in this, and from the correctional standpoint, yeah, like it's. I don't even know how to describe it. It's as cliche as it sounds, you have to feel it to kind of get an idea of what it's like.
Right.
And I think that's really helped me in this. I mean, I know it's helped me. I know it's been huge in my recovery and continues to be huge in my recovery. My coworkers from Kenora here, they're amazing. They look after me. They're always checking in on me. They're always asking how I'm doing. They're treating me, no different than the day before that. Even though they know that, something's probably different up in John's head, but we're just gonna treat him like normal. And I think that's important to tell people that, I'm hurting, but I'm healing too. And one of the best things you can do, at least in my own journey, is just treat me like normal, and just, people were walking on eggshells around me for a long time, and people still do, which is normal, I guess, because, they don't know how to talk around me.
Yeah, they have no idea.
They have no idea, yeah. And it's funny because that idea of like, you have no idea or you don't know how to help me, there were times where even though I had so much help and so much support and continue to have all this, love and support around me, when people say, if you need anything, just let me know. And a lot of times I would say, I don't even know what I need. I don't know what I need. Can you tell me what I need? Can you tell me what I need to get better?
Right.
And that's a question nobody can answer. No one can, it can be a very, at times it's still a very lonely journey. Wondering, what do I need? And what's the best scenario for me? And, when people say like, is there anything I can do to help you? Even now I kind of say, I don't know. Can you help me?
I'll let you know when I know.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I know. So it's weird. It's a surreal, it's a weird spot to be in for sure.
Oh, yeah, very unique and weird spot. How is your wife and how are the kids? They're good?
Kids are good. Yeah. I'm thankful that my 8-year-old is, brilliant and just,
right.
She's super smart and clever like her mom. So she knows that, dad's going back to work at some point, but, when he wants to go back to work, he will. My wife is getting there. She's, this has been very difficult for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
her world could have changed drastically.
Yeah. Yeah. Her, she's been phenomenal. She's been the most important person in my, she's my world. And, there's no way I could even continue to get better without her. We're helping each other heal. She's got her own healing journey to do, as do I do. So I know at some point, there's only so much I can do to help her until, she's going to have to help herself at some point. So when the time is right, when she's ready to do that, and when she's ready to take that journey, I'll be right there with her to help her, just like she's been right there with me.
Are they good at offering support to your family as well? Like, I know they've offered you support, but is there also resources for them?
Oh yes, yeah,
Okay, good. Right.
yeah. More resources have been offered to us through my employer, through the ministry, through the province, through local everybody. We probably have more help than we'll ever need, hopefully, ever. So that was never a concern. It was,
Good. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, just anybody and everybody has been so generous, so helpful. Just even the little things like. Yeah, just the little things nowadays go huge for us, and that could be as simple as,
right.
Do you want to come over and hang out? Do you want to, can we come over? Do you want company? Can we drop off food? Can we, it's the little things now are so huge and so impactful that we took them for granted before, so, and it sucks that it takes, something terrible to kind of put things back in perspective. And I find that I'm in a place in my life now where I'm much more, mindful of the little things and much more thankful for, the simpler things that I just took for granted before. And, that's one thing I always take away from this is that I'm much more humble and I'm much more thankful and I'm much more, grateful for what we have now and what we continue to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know, I'm not going to pretend to know where you're going to go from this, but I can tell you that if you choose to, you can, this is not going to be nearly the last time you're going to talk about this and talk about the things that correctional officers go through in general.
Yeah.
I personally hope that you choose to do that because you are very good at it. And I think that, your industry needs it a lot. I mean, I know what you're saying about, in general, first responder families, whether it be paramedic family, police family, firefighter family, corrections, search and rescue, there's many. I mean, They are very tight. But I had the opportunity, I had some downtime in Edmonton, and I got hooked up with Legacy Place Society, and Diana Festeo took me to, they were putting on there was a Halloween party for corrections officers in the Edmonton area, and proceeds, it was a charity thing, proceeds were going to Project Trauma Support, and, not Project Trauma Support, we're going to Legacy Place Society, and, so she took me to this, we checked in on this event, and it was great, there were lots of people there, and they were all dressed up, and they were having a lot of fun, and Diana told me, she said, this is what this is about. This is about giving them an opportunity to blow off steam because of what they do each and every day, but to see the camaraderie and they're just happy, having fun together as a family. It was quite an experience. So I know kind of what you're talking about when you talk about that closeness. And I hope that I hope you continue to talk about this. If you do, if people want to contact you, John, is there a way that they can do that? I mean, I know you've been contacted a lot, but is there?
Yeah, I mean, you can just you can find me on Facebook, I guess. That's where the majority of people have reached out to me just through that social media platform.
Right.
That I would say that's the best way for people to get in touch with me. It's just find me on Facebook and send me a message and I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for me as far as work goes.
Right.
There's plenty of opportunities and scenarios and different routes I can take, within the ministry or within corrections as a whole when I'm ready.
Right.
And I just don't know when that's going to be. It's something I struggle with, and it's something I think about every day, which I know I shouldn't. I'm told all the time to take your time and don't rush it and take care of yourself. And that when I know it's time to, have that conversation, I'll be ready. I've been told by everyone that, you'll know when you're ready, to take that step, and that's up to you. And nobody can tell you how long that's going to be, and nobody can tell you, when that's going to be. So I'm constantly trying to figure that out. In the meantime, I'm blessed that this incident, has given me a lot of freedom to spend time with my family more so than before. So I'm thankful for that. It has really brought, my corrections family here in Kenora together. So it's great to see that. It's really, it opened up a lot of eyes as per how dangerous our line of work really is, because this was a classic case of, this will never happen here, and this will never happen in our center, and this happens over here, but this will never happen here.
And it'll happen to you.
It'll never happen to me. It'll never happen. Yeah, it's a classic case of that'll never happen to me, and it did happen to me.
Right.
And it's changed things now. And I think it's going to change things for the better. And I'm just, I don't know if I'll go back to work in corrections anymore. Right. And that's just a very difficult thing for me to hear myself say. Right. But in the meantime, I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm getting better. I continue to seek help, and I continue to try and, get better in whatever way I can. And if me talking about it, to coworkers or to a professional or to, on a podcast, if anyone can, take anything from this, is just that, if this helps anybody in any way, then that's what I want to do now. I see this as an opportunity to help people now. So, and to be educated too about, the dangerous world that goes on in these jails every day, mostly, unheard of, and a lot of times is people just aren't aware of what's happening. So
no, and that's a good point you make about educating yourself. That's why I do this. I mean, and not to sound wrong by saying this, but my main goal for starting this podcast and for doing it is to educate myself, because I didn't know anything about PTSD and how to get through it and how to navigate it. That's why I started it. And as a beneficial offshoot of that, if anybody else gets anything out of it, then that's a bonus if they like it. But really, I've learned so much just by having, over the last 3 years, by having all my awesome guests on, and just being able to learn and build that community. And but that's a really important thing, is to educate yourself. And that's why I try to have people on that know more about it than I do, or that have gone through some different things. So that's really important. John, if there's anybody listening to this right now who is struggling in any way whatsoever, and they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
Wow, what would I say? I would say you got to talk. You can't hide from it. I would say face it head on and get through the bad days, and know that you're not alone. There are people there that are going through it right now. Maybe worse, maybe different, but they're feeling something. And the more you can reach out to people, and the more you can let them know that, there's help. And there's a road to recovery, and everyone's road is different. Some people, choose to take that road right away, and some people choose to try and build their own road, and some people tend to try and skip the road altogether and just
avoid it. Yeah.
Go the opposite way. And people have to make the choice to want to get better, and some people figure that out right away, and some people figure that out later. And I would say the sooner you can figure that out, the better. And that it's what you're going through is not it's not weird. I mean, it is weird, but it's
weird for you individually, but it's not unique.
Exactly.
Globally.
Right. Yeah, what you're going through right now, people are going through it too. Yeah. And the more we can bring it out there and tell people that, this is happening to me, and there is help available, but you have to make the conscious effort to seek it out, because you can choose to deal with it on your own, and it may work for you, and it might be hard, and that could work. But for some people, in my experience at least, it's a lot easier when you seek out the help that people are offering, and it helps.
It's just waiting. You have to speak up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't stay silent. Don't suffer alone. Find us. We're there. You got to find us. We're out there.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Listen, there's so many things I want to say to you, but I'll keep it at this. I am I can't imagine, and I still can't imagine what it was like to go through what you went through. A lot of us, I mean, I'm in the first responder community, but this is a whole different level. I mean, even I can imagine people outside the first responder community have, like you said, have zero concept of what your work environment is like. All they know is from the movies. And, even when you're probably even when you're telling me your story, I'm envisioning, how did this look in a movie? Can't even imagine it. Can't comprehend it. I'm obviously so sorry that you went through it. I'm extremely happy that you made it through it. Obviously, that's a testament to you and your training. Like you said, some of the things that you did on purpose as far as not engaging. I mean, so happy that you made it through it. I'm happy that you're healing. I hope that you get to do whatever job it is you want to do whenever you're ready. I thank you for your service. I thank you for coming on. That is not easy to do. It's not an easy story to tell, but it needs to be told. So I thank you for that. It's very important. Obviously, if there's anything you have down the road, we'd love to hear updates on you and how you're doing. Please do that, and I'll keep my listeners updated. If you happen to do something new and you go into a new endeavor and you want to talk about it, please come back on. The door is always open for you. After this, it doesn't close. I think that you are destined for greater things. I believe that, and I thank you for coming on. I thank you for your service, like I said, and I just can't say enough about you. I just thank you.
Well, that's very humbling to hear. Thank you, Sean, for what you do, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my story and kind of let people know, like, if this helps one person out there, whether or not he or she is in the same line of work or something similar, then that's all. Then I'm thankful for that. If this helps one person in any way recover or just helps them in any way, then this was worth it. And
yeah, you got it on that. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, again, it's my pleasure. So I mean, obviously, keep taking care of you, take care of your family, your wife and your kids and your extended family, and maybe we'll chat again some other time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd like that, Sean. Let's do that.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
And exhale. Whoa. How was that? That was a lot. That was heavy. I don't know about you, but that hit me like a truck. Thank you, John, for coming on and talking to us. Much needed. Really much needed conversation to get a perspective from a corrections officer, especially for this type of event. Very courageous. I can't think of adequate words to describe it, but it was awesome. I'm sure it's going to help many people. I know it helped me. So thank you, John, for coming on and chatting again. We have an update from John. He wanted to give us a little update, and here it is. I'm just reading his email, parts of his email here. He wants to share with you guys that his recovery is going very well. He's planning on returning to work in the very near future. He's going to stay within the corrections community, but he's going to be in a different capacity. That's awesome. Fantastic. He says he still suffers from what is considered to be PTSD symptoms from time to time, but he has learned to cope better and recognize when a bad day is coming and how to deal with it. He's owning his growth. He's taking responsibility. He said he hopes to share his story and recovery process with whomever can benefit from it, and he looks forward to possibly an update chat on the podcast. Of course. Welcome anytime. Thanks again, John. You were awesome. It was great. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, if you would like to sponsor the podcast or know of an organization that might be interested, please email me at uptalkpodcast@gmail.com. Would love to have you on board. Check out the Mental Health News Radio Network. They have over 30 shows, 30 plus shows all dealing with different aspects of mental health. Check it out. They are awesome. This has already been a tough year. We're already only a month in. I know in Nova Scotia we've already lost a couple of first responders due to what looks like mental health issues. It's just not necessary. We have to do better. We have so much more work to do. And there's lots of people doing good work. So here's what I'd like to do. If you know of an organization, a Facebook page, an initiative that is doing good work, or if you happen to run a page that you think you would like highlighted, email me at uptalkpodcast@gmail.com. Tell me about what you're doing, and I will be happy to talk about it on the podcast and to ask people to check it out. All right? What I am going to do right now is I'm going to tell you about one. You may remember last season Chad Ginter came on. He's from Keep Calm and Paddle On. Awesome dude. Anyway, he has a new initiative, and it is called Project All In. And I'm not going to butcher it. So what I'm going to ask you to do, go to projectallin.ca. All right, and this has to do with a coin. We've all seen those challenge coins that different organizations have, which are cool. So this coin has a specific purpose. A member of an organization has this coin, okay? If they pass the coin to another member or a family member, depending on what side of the coin they pass, it can mean different things. It can mean that they need help right away, or it can mean they need a debrief. But basically, it's a way to start conversation, okay? It's wicked, and I certainly don't do it any justice by what I just said. You need to look it up. You need to look it up and check this out. Chad is doing awesome work, okay? One of many. So I hope to highlight at least one, if not more, every episode of other people doing awesome work. You can always check out my Facebook page because I share everybody's stuff. You're going to find other podcast links on there, other Facebook pages, everything. I share everybody's stuff. Okay? And if you'd like me to share something of yours, just get a hold of me. Alright? Alright, guys. That'll do it for today. That was a long episode, but a really important one. So, until next time, take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry.